we know that antibiotics are a very prominent group of secondary metabolites. Today in this program, we are going to learn about the antibiotics other than beta-lactam antibiotics, which are cell wall inhibitors. Now, beta-lactam antibiotics is known to us as the one which have got a beta-lactam ring in their structure. Though they are also the cell wall inhibitors, the antibiotics which are other than beta-lactam antibiotics do not have the beta-lactam ring. The beta-lactam antibiotics are the one which inhibit the last stages of the peptidoglycan synthesis, that is the transpeptidation, when the pentaglycine bridge has to be formed. While the antibiotics which are other than the beta-lactam antibiotics, they inhibit the various stages of the peptidoglycan synthesis. So let us learn about the antibiotics other than the beta-lactam antibiotics, which are cell wall inhibitors. Now, peptidoglycan is a very important component of the bacterial cell wall, and it is the sole component which is present in the bacteria only, because this component is not found in the eukaryotic cell. And there has got, or we say the peptidoglycan has got a very important role to play. What are these? Let us learn. The structural role which is exhibited by the peptidoglycan is to maintain the bacterial shape and to counteract the internal pressure of the bacterial cell. It also provides the support to the bacterial cell. As a result, the bacterial cell assumes a shape and a size. It also maintains the osmotic pressure of the cytoplasm and gives the structural strength to the bacteria. So in a way, we can say that if the peptidoglycan layer is weakened, the influx of the excessive water into the cytoplasm will occur and the bacterial cell will burst. So why we target the peptidoglycan? Now, when we have the beta-lactam antibiotics, we know that beta-lactam are the cell wall inhibitors, but still we search for the antibiotics which are other than beta-lactam. Why? Because beta-lactam antibiotics have got some limitations. What are these limitations? Let us learn. The first limitation that we come across is in the case of penicillins. Penicillins have got a very short life, about half an hour to 2 hours, and therefore it has to be given 3-4 times per day, or sometimes we say that it has to be frequently dosed intravenously. The second limitation that we come across the beta-lactam antibiotic is hypersensitivity reaction. Now, in the case of hypersensitivity reaction, we say that the degradation products of the penicillin combine with the host proteins and therefore they become antigenic, and therefore the host becomes hypersensitive. Another limitation that we found in the beta-lactam antibiotic is the alteration in the bacterial flora of the gut causing gastrointestinal disturbances. That means the probiotics have to be given to the patient because the normal flora of the patient is lost in the intestine, and therefore the probiotics has to be administered in such patients. Another limitation we find is penicillinase resistant penicillins like nafcillin and methicillin show a very poor penetration of the cerebrospinal fluid. Now, if the cerebrospinal fluid is infected with some gram-positive bacteria, these antibiotics do not work, and therefore we have to search for the antibiotics other than the beta-lactam antibiotics. Peptidoglycan, as I told you, is a very important component of the bacterial cell wall, and therefore the antibiotics target this peptidoglycan so that it does not cause any damage to the host cells while it causes damage to the bacterial cells only. This peptidoglycan is a macromolecule. It has got different stages of synthesis. So let us first learn the different stages of synthesis of peptidoglycan and how these different stages could be inhibited by different types of antibiotics. The first stage that we come across in the cytoplasm is production of certain water-soluble precursors, because these precursors are short molecules and they will be ultimately transported out of the cell cytoplasm in the cytoplasmic membrane, and ultimately it forms the layer of peptidoglycan. So the first stage is when fructose 6-phosphate is converted to N-glucosamine 6-phosphate. Now, amino group is derived from the glutamine, and this particular step is inhibited by the antibiotic which is called bacillicin. If the bacillicin is not there in this step, then N-glucosamine 6-phosphate is converted to a nucleotide sugar, that is uridine diphosphate N-acetyl glucosamine. Bacillysine is a non-ribosomal synthesized peptide. That means it is a dipeptide. It has got two components prominently. One is L-alanine and the second one is a non-proteogenic amino acid, which is L-anticapsin. Now what happens is, bacillysine is hydrolyzed by the sensitive bacteria. That means those bacteria which are sensitive to the bacillysine, it hydrolyzes the bacillysine and provides two component L-alanine and anticapsin. Anticapsin is the inhibitor of glucosamine synthetase. That is the one which is responsible to carry out the first step of the synthesis of peptidoglycan, and therefore the bacillysine inhibits the first step of synthesis. If I go to the next step, that is when N-acetyl glucosamine, which is attached to the uridine diphosphate, is converted to N-acetyl muramic acid. Now this step takes place rather in two stages. In one stage, and therefore I have given two arrows over here, in one stage we have transfer and ether linkage to C3 of a unit from phosphoenol pyruvate, and in the next step we have the reduction of C double bond C. Now this step is very important and which is very specific because N-acetyl muramic acid is found only in bacteria. This is not present in the human. So the human cells will not be hampered, whereas the bacterial cells will only be inhibited. And this step of inhibition, or this particular step, can be inhibited by another antibiotic, and that is fosfomycin. Now if the fosfomycin is not able to inhibit this step, or if the bacteria does not come across fosfomycin, then the next step is N-acetyl muramic acid will be converted to N-acetyl muramic acid tripeptide. But if the fosfomycin is present, then this step will be inhibited. Now how the inhibition of this step takes place, let us study. Fosfomycin is also called phosphonomycin, or sometimes instead of F we can use PH also. So it is again pronounced as fosfomycin only. It's a broad spectrum antibiotic which is produced by many species of Streptomyces, and it can be made chemically also. Now in the fosfomycin, what we come across is there is a specific transporter which is called the glycerophosphate transporter. Now with the help of this transporter, fosfomycin enters the cell. Number one. Number two is fosfomycin inactivates an enzyme which is called UDP N-acetyl glucosamine 3-enol pyruvinyl transferase, which is also known as MURA, that is MURA. So what happens? It makes the MURA inactive. And when this MURA becomes inactive, here you can see how the MURA can be made inactive, because this enzyme catalyzes the ligation of PEP to 3-hydroxyl group of UDP and acetyl glucosamine. As a result, we have the formation of inactive MURA, and therefore this step could be inhibited by fosfomycin. Now, another thing is the evolution of the bacterial species. There are many bacterial species nowadays which have become resistant to fosfomycin. That means there is a mechanism which is developing inside the bacteria, and as a result, they are not sensitive to fosfomycin and the bacterial cell wall inhibition is not taking place. So how this mechanism of resistance is appearing in the bacteria, let us see. We say that in many bacterial species there is inactivation of the non-essential glycerophosphate transporter. Now I told you this transporter is very essential for the transport of fosfomycin inside the cell. So if this transporter is inactivated or altered in some way, the fosfomycin will not enter the cell, and as a result it will not be able to inhibit the cell wall synthesis. So the first mechanism is inhibition or inactivation of the transporter, which is carrying fosfomycin inside the cytoplasm. Another thing we come across is many bacteria have got 3 related fosfomycin resistant enzymes. They are named as FOS-A, FOS-B and FOS-X. Now this FOS comes from the name fosfomycin only. Now different species of FOS which are present here, they function by nucleophilic attack on the carbon 1 of fosfomycin. As a result, the epoxide ring is opened and this makes the antibiotic ineffective. Now the FOS enzyme I was talking about, here you can see they differ by identity of the nucleophile utilized in the reaction. I told you there will be nucleophilic attack. So they are characterized on the basis of the nucleophile attack. For example, in the case of phosphate, it is glutathione. In phosB, it is bacillithiol. And in the case of phosX, this is water. Now, these enzymes are present in different species of bacteria. Here you can see the phos-A is found in these species like of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Pseudomonas fluorescens, while we come across phos-B in Streptomyces, or in the case of Staphylococcus epidermis or Staphylococcus aureus. Then we have different species of Bacillus where we find phos-B, and then phos-X is also found in different species of bacteria. So this is very much related to the species. It is not necessary that all the FOS enzyme will be present in a single bacteria. The bacteria may show the presence of phos-A, phos-B or phos-X, not all together. So with the presence of these enzymes, they show the resistance towards fosfomycin. So let us see the next step, how it can be inhibited. The next step is N-acetyl-muramic acid tripeptide will be converted to N-acetyl-muramic acid pentapeptide. That means there will be addition of 2 residues of alanine. Now this step is specifically inhibited by another antibiotic which is called cycloserine. Now this cycloserine is mainly used in infections which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Though theoretically we say that we can use it against many gram-positive bacteria, but normally it is used against Mycobacterium tuberculosis only. Here you can see the structure of the cycloserine. Now the mechanism of the cycloserine states that D-alanine which has to be added, or 2 residues of D-alanine which has to be added to the tripeptide so that it will be converted to the pentapeptide, we need 2 enzymes. These 2 enzymes is alanine racemase which produces the D-alanine, and the other residue is alanine ligase which will attach the 2-alanine molecule to the peptidoglycan. Now these 2 enzymes are competitively inhibited by cycloserine. That means the cycloserine can affect both these enzymes. Let us see in the diagram how this can happen. I told you this is D-alanine racemase which is producing the D-alanine. This can be inhibited by cycloserine. Here we can see the brown colored molecule. These are the cycloserine. They can inhibit this enzyme. However, in other case, when the dipeptide formation takes place, the 2 D-alanine are combined together to form the dipeptide. This is again with the help of an enzyme, and this enzyme can also be inhibited by the specific antibiotic, that is cycloserine. So cycloserine can inhibit this enzyme as well as this enzyme. As a result, the dipeptide is not formed and the dipeptide will not attach, and therefore the tripeptide formation will remain as it is and there will be no pentapeptide formation. Till now, we were studying the steps of biosynthesis of the peptidoglycan which were taking place in the cytoplasm. That means the precursors are produced inside the cytoplasm. They form a molecule up to an acetyl-muramic acid pentapeptide which is attached to uridine diphosphate, and this will be now transported to the cytoplasmic membrane, and ultimately it will form the layer outside the cell producing a peptidoglycan cell wall. Now let us see these stages which are taking place outside the cell. We call it the steps at the cytoplasmic membrane. The first step is when N-acetyl-muramic acid pentapeptide will be transferred from uridine diphosphate, that is from UDP, to phosphorylated carrier. Now this carrier is a C55 polyisoprenoid alcohol. That means this is a very bigger molecule, and a pyrophosphate bond between the carrier and the precursor is retained. Now this specific step of transfer from UDP to the carrier molecule can be inhibited by another antibiotic which is called tunicamycin. If we go on to the structure of the tunicamycin, we will find that basically there are four important components that we find in tunicamycin. Number one, there is presence of uracil. Number two, there is presence of N-acetylglucosamine. Then we find there is presence of tunicamine. Now, tunicamine is 11-carbon amino dialdose, which is called tunicamine, and attached to tunicamine is a fatty acyl side chain. So, these are basically the four components of tunicamycin. Now, let us go to the mechanism of action of the tunicamycin. We find that it inhibits uridine diphosphate, N-acetyl muramoyl pentapeptide, undecaprenol phosphate, N-acetylmuramic acid pentapeptide 1-phosphate transferase. Now, this is an enzyme which is responsible for the transfer of the N-acetylmuramic acid pentapeptide from UDP to undecaprenol, which is the carrier molecule, and this transfer is inhibited by tunicamycin. If we go on to the action site, here we can see the precursor which is formed, or the pentapeptide which is formed, has to be transported because another pentapeptide will come and attach to this unit molecule, while this is inhibited, or the transfer from UDP to the carrier is inhibited by tunicamycin. Going on to the next step of the peptidoglycan synthesis, we call addition of the new unit to the preformed polymer. I told you that the pentapeptide which is formed, another pentapeptide which is again coming, so these are two units, and between these two units, or these two units have to come closer to each other, and ultimately there will be formation of the pentaglycine bridge. So this formation or addition of the new unit is another step which has to be carried out. So new peptidoglycan must be transferred from the lipid carrier, which is released as undecaprenyl pyrophosphate. Now the pyrophosphate loses one phosphate. So what happens? There is dephosphorylation. We say that pyrophosphate loses one phosphate, and therefore after it loses one phosphate, the undecaprenyl phosphate is recycled. This process of losing of the phosphate and recycling of the pyrophosphate is inhibited by another antibiotic which is called the bacitracin. Here you can see the structure of the bacitracin, which is a cyclic polypeptide. Bacitracin is synthesized with a process which is called a non-ribosomal peptide synthetases, because this is a protein. It's a cyclic protein or a cyclic peptide, but this is synthesized without the help of ribosomes, and therefore we call it a non-ribosomal protein synthesis. Okay. Now, going on to the mechanism, I told you this undecaprenyl pyrophosphate has to lose this phosphate and it has to be recycled back. Now, here we can see the bacitracin causes the inhibition of this step when it is not able to lose this phosphate. That means we say that a molecule carrier or a bacitracin is a molecule which inhibits the step of dephosphorylation of the C55 isoprenyl pyrophosphate, and as a result this step is inhibited. Another group of antibiotic which is called the glycopeptide, a very prominent group of antibiotic which is other than beta-lactam and a very potent cell wall inhibitor. Now glycopeptide, they are composed of glycosylated cyclic or polycyclic non-ribosomal peptidases. Again, a non-ribosomal protein synthesis is carrying out or synthesizing the glycopeptides. Now they do not penetrate the cerebrospinal fluid. The glycopeptides have got this limitation. They effectively act against the gram-positive bacteria. The most important glycopeptide that is known to us is vancomycin, then we have teicoplanin, we have telavancin, then bleomycin and ramoplanin. So out of these we will study a little bit about a glycopeptide antibiotic. The first one we are going to learn is vancomycin. Now vancomycin, as you can see the structure, it has got a very complex structure and it is a very rare haloorganic natural compound. Why haloorganic? Because there is presence of two chlorine atoms. So two chlorine atoms which are present or which are covalently bounded to it makes it haloorganic natural compound. Now vancomycin, if I go to the mechanism of the action, we see that it has got a high affinity to the D-alanine terminal residue of the pentapeptide. That means after the pentapeptide is being formed, we have the last stages of the amino acid, which is D-alanine and D-alanine. This D-alanine is the site, or the two D-alanine molecules is the site where the vancomycin has got the affinity. It will attach to the D-alanine. Okay, now when it attaches to the D-alanine, and therefore the synthesis stops. So if I go to the vancomycin sensitive bacteria, here in this diagram you can very well see that this is a peptidoglycan unit and we have two D-alanines. Okay. Now this 2D-alanine is the site where the vancomycin attaches, and therefore the cell wall biosynthesis is being inhibited. However, there are many bacteria where we find that the vancomycin resistance have developed, because what happens, these bacteria do not synthesize 2D-alanine, whereas they synthesize 1D-alanine and another residue of D-lactate or sometimes D-serine. Now when there is one D-alanine and one D-lactate, it is not the site of the vancomycin, and therefore the vancomycin remains ineffective and the cell wall biosynthesis will take place as it is. So this is in the case what we find in the vancomycin resistant bacteria. Going on to another glycopeptide, that is telavancine. This is again a very complex molecule, and this is mainly used in the case of MRSA or methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Here you can see the infection, or a very chronic skin infection. This is caused by methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Now in this cases, on these infection, we use the antibiotic. Now mechanism of action, if we go on to it, is similar to the vancomycin. That is, it inhibits, or it has got a high affinity of D-alanine residue, and therefore the biosynthesis process can be inhibited. Another antibiotic, that is called teicoplanin. Now teicoplanin has got different types, and this type vary because there is a presence of R group over here. If this R group, which is the side chain, if it varies, we have different types of teicoplanin. It can be A1, A2, A3, A4 or A5. So different steps. Again, the mode of action remains same. It binds to the D-alanine residues or the terminal residues of D-alanine and D-alanine, and therefore it can inhibit the action of transglycosidases and transpeptidases. It also inhibits another process which is called the RNA synthesis. So this is the additional effect of this particular antibiotic. Therefore, today we study the antibiotics which are not beta-lactam antibiotics, but they are similar to beta-lactam because their function is similar. They are also inhibiting the cell wall synthesis. Why? Because the beta-lactam antibiotics have developed some limitations and they cannot be used, and therefore we have find out, or we are searching for other antibiotics which can inhibit the different steps of the biosynthesis of peptidoglycan. Therefore, the bacterial cells can be inhibited by beta-lactam antibiotics as well as the other antibiotics which can act at different stages of the biosynthesis of the peptidoglycan. Thank you.